The environment was awful. I walked in my first day and I couldn't believe I was there. It felt like a dream. Everybody was looking at me. They all know I'm a cop. I look like a cop. I walk like a cop. So they all started making comments. So I didn't feel safe at all my first several days. Day two, it was a big shakedown of everybody's lockers and beds, and they found, I think, 9, 10, 11 knives, numerous cell phones and contraband and drugs. And of course they come to me and said I was the cause of the shakedown. You're a cop. Me. You're involved. You. I'm like, I just got here. I don't know what's going on here. I'm not going to give anybody up. I don't know what's going on. But they said I was a former law enforcement. You're a rat. We don't like cops. And I said, listen, sorry. I had nothing to do with this. I just got here. I'm sorry. And that was my second day there. So and that continued for several days after. I didn't feel safe. I sent emails to the warden. I sent emails to my counselor. I don't feel safe. Can you please protect me, move me, whatever you have to do. Not one response. I didn't get any responses from my emails, from my reach out to several people at the prison.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. Please hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching. We'd love to have you with us as a regular. This little thing is growing and we'd love to have you be a part of it. You may recall a while ago I interviewed Martha Byrne. She's an Emmy Award winning actress. You probably saw her on some of the soap operas. And she was on the podcast to talk about her husband, who had been falsely accused of working with the Chinese Communist Party. In an investigation. Well, guess what? He has just been pardoned by the president. And I had a feeling he would be. You hear about a lot of pardons, Rudy Giuliani, some of these bigger names, Hunter Biden. But this is a pardon story you must hear. Because this one won't get the same kind of publicity, but it should. Martha Byrne's husband, Michael McMahon, was a cop in New York City, was there on 9/11, and later on in his career was doing some simple investigative work as a private eye, and he found himself in federal prison. Thank you to the Department of Justice. This story must be told over and over again. You'll want to hear it. They both, the happy reunited couple, are my guest next. Well, Martha and Michael, happy holidays. It's got to be, this is an incredible story. I mentioned in the intro, we hear a lot about pardons and commutations from the president. This one doesn't get the kind of publicity that, say, Rudy Giuliani would get, but I think it's worth as much, if not more. So welcome to you both. You must be, Martha, you look so much more at peace than the last time I talked to you when you were fighting for this. What are you feeling these days?
I'll tell you, a week ago, Mike was in a halfway house in Newark, New Jersey. And just the other day, we were at an event with Chairman Jim Jordan and Congressman Lawler, and my husband got a standing ovation after his name was mentioned. To me, if that doesn't sum up what this feeling has been in the last 10 days or so, I don't know what does, other than getting a call from Mike Lawler that the president had just spoken to Mike Lawler saying, tell Mike McMahon he has a full and unconditional pardon. I mean, it is truly overwhelming. I know how difficult it is to get a pardon from the president of the United States, and the process is so complex, and it doesn't, people just don't understand what it takes to get the president on his desk. So
yeah, because everyone in America who's behind bars is probably going for one of these. Let's give people the rundown, Michael, of the sort of the background of this story in case they didn't see my original interview with Martha. You are a multi-decorated retired NYPD cop who also was doing some private investigation, and you took on a case. What was this case that you took on as you walked in the door and you saw it and what you were going to do? So let's give people the understanding that you're making a living.
Yeah.
You walk in, you take this case. What was the sort of the brief that you were to follow?
It was a routine surveillance case. We had to track down a person from China who was living in New Jersey. The company that hired me was looking for millions of dollars that were stolen from this company in China. He was living in New Jersey. I hired 2 NYPD detectives that were retired. So us 3 guys were doing routine surveillance, background checks, simple stuff. After 5 days, I gave over my information, my report to my client. And then 4 years later, FBI surrounds my house with local cops, FBI agents in flap jackets. And it was
no warning? You didn't know this was coming?
No idea. No idea. They said at my front door that I was working for China. And I said, okay, you're wrong, but then they said the charge is FARA. I said, what is FARA? What is FARA? And they said Foreign Registration Act. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. So, we go to trial. We fight this because I did nothing wrong. I did everything by the book. I notified the local police each and every day of surveillance, which is what we do for safety, security. You're in their area, so it's courtesy, and it's mainly a safety issue. You don't want police rolling up on us during surveillance. So we notified the police. I notified 2 federal agents who I knew. So everybody knew about this case. It was no secret on my part. But the CCP had their own separate operation going on that I had no idea that was taking place. But the FBI spun this whole case as if I was part of it from the beginning, which really, really bothered me. They never called me, never called my family, never told us what was going on, never brought me in to ask me any questions, never asked the local police or the 2 guys I hired or the 2 federal agents who I spoke to. They didn't bring anybody in to speak. But we found out that the FBI was working with CCP officials numerous times instead of U.S. law enforcement. That's what really bothers me.
And by the way,
this does not.
I'm
sorry, Martha. This does not sound like America to me. This sounds like, Russia or some third world government. Go ahead, Martha.
I'm just saying we knew that once we started getting discovery on this case, when we fought back, that the FBI knew in 16, 17, they had Mike's name, and every piece of evidence exonerated him. The search warrants were false. They lied on search warrants to surveil us illegally. So they knew, there's no doubt in my mind that the FBI knew he was innocent since 2016, 17. And instead of bringing him in to work with him, and help our country, there's Chinese police stations going up in New York City. They're buying property. Why didn't they bring him in? And we've had people come forward who are great agents who said, FBI, federal agents said, I would have loved to have worked with you. We would have been so far ahead of China if we brought you in to help us. And they never did.
So why do you think this happened then? What was the motivation to just bring you in and charge you with this crime, Mike, instead of working with you or even asking you about it to begin with?
I think they were protecting a CCP asset. Mm-hmm. We found out later on, he worked in Wuhan. He was part of the Buildings and Road Initiative in Wuhan during the construction of the lab in Wuhan. So he was a high-ranking CCP official there. So we're thinking that is probably the main part of it. They want to protect him. And we found out later on they were assisting him. The FBI was assisting him with a civil case from here, from New Jersey, that he was a litigant in.
And immigration.
So we saw thank you notes also from his family, the CCP family, to the FBI agents. Thank you for helping us with our immigration. Thank you for helping us with our civil lawsuit. That's not the FBI's job.
No. And we were not allowed to talk about that at trial, by the way. The alleged victims in this case, when Mike was sentenced, asked for no jail time for Mike, no restitution, and couldn't identify him in court. How does this happen? So the judge gave him 18 months in federal prison, not because he did anything wrong, but because he had no remorse for the victims. But the victims lied. They lied on the stand. It is a mess, absolute
Terrible.
mess of a case.
I hope, Martha, with your ties to production, maybe this gets turned into a movie or some sort of film, because this story, to me, illustrates how dark it can get in the quote unquote, people laugh at the term deep state, but isn't this, Michael, the kind of the classic example of what the deep state is?
Absolutely. 100%. I didn't really understand it before my case, but now I fully understand it, and I can't believe it happened to me and my family. I tried reaching out to the FBI after my arrest. I wanted to speak to the agent. Listen, I want to help you guys. Whatever you guys need, please come to me. Ask me any questions you have. Not once did I get a call from them to speak with them one-on-one about what I knew, what I worked with, who I met with. Not one phone call. But what was disturbing is, in our discovery, they met with several CCP agents. Countless times. And one of their main witnesses testifies at trial. He admitted to lying to the FBI over 9 times. To the FBI.
And yet that didn't impact your sentence. You were sentenced basically because you did not show remorse. That's what you're telling me?
She says it. The judge says it in her at the end, and it was so horrifying. And you talk about the deep state. Recently, I'm sure you know that the OIG had a report on Charles McGonigal, who was the disgraced FBI agent who was getting money from Russia, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in that report, it shows that Jim Biden, Joe's brother, in November of 2017 was using former Secret Service agents turned investigators to look into his Chinese business partners. So here you go. They're actually doing what they're accusing you of. Again, right before the election. Mike was arrested a week before the 2020 election. And people thought I was crazy that it was connected to Hunter's business dealings and Joe's, there you go. It comes to find out that they were involved with all this shady business with China. And the laptop had so much information on there about these business transactions. And now we just found out that Joe's brother, was using former Secret Service agents to access information on their Chinese business partners in 2017. So it's so messy. Why would you just sacrifice my husband for optics? He was the only American.
Because they could. Because they could, right? Now do you, this is kind of a double-edged thing here, that you're married to a celebrity, in your wife, Martha, because on the one hand, it brought a certain measure of attention to your case, which sort of like, looky here, look what can happen to you. But on the other hand, it brought a certain amount of attention to your case, which it kind of blows up the cover, if you will. Just it exposes so much of the rot that's there. So, which do you think how much do you think your wife influenced the fact that you were the one, Michael?
During my arrest, it was never brought up about who she was. In any of the interviews that I did, never brought up about what she did or how she made her living. But after the trial was over, that's when it sort of came out, and that's when more of the attention came to my case. She has over 20,000 followers on X, and once she started posting about it, it became more prevalent out there, and people started asking questions, and so that was huge, and it definitely helped with my pardon. All her advocacy and her details about my case came out, and I think that helped secure us a pardon, and we're grateful to President.
I'm curious about a couple things. So the trial ends. You're sentenced to 18 months. You're standing in the courtroom. You're getting that sentence. What was the next thing that happened? Were you immediately taken?
No.
Okay.
So she gave me 6 weeks to prepare my finances and say goodbye to my family. So I turned around, I walked out the door, and I come face to face with the FBI agent who was the case agent. And I walked up to him and I sort of had a few words with him. And I said to him, "Shame on you for lying on the complaint." I go, "Shame on you for lying in your search warrant applications." I said, "I'm a good person. I'm a good guy." I said, how How dare you do that to me and my family?
What was his response?
His face turned red and his eyes opened up super wide and he was speechless. He just stared at me, didn't have any comment.
He didn't even testify at the trial. Have you ever heard in a million years that a case agent did not testify to his own case at trial? They brought in third-party people to read things into the record. I mean, this case should be studied as to what not to do in the justice system. It is the opposite of what it's supposed to be. And thank God for Pam Bondi when she came in and started clarifying some rules and laws that would be helpful to us. And I really believe our case helped that, because the GOP Oversight Committee in 2024, James Comer said in there that the DOJ had a failing grade when it came to the CCP because of Michael's case. So we're making traction. I think this is a horrific example, but perfect example at the same time. And I think why President Trump, I don't want to quote him, but I'm sure he has said to someone that they went after him too, the same way. They made up cases, they made up charges, they wouldn't let him bring in exculpatory evidence, and it was so similar to what they did to Donald Trump. I think when he read this case or was briefed on it, he went, wait a minute, this sounds very familiar.
Well, the other thing about lawfare, if you will, is that it costs a lot of money. How did it impact you two financially to have to defend yourself?
That was terrible. I had to liquidate my retirement account. We had to take loans on our house. Luckily, my brothers and sisters were so generous, they gave us money. We had fundraisers. Eddie Gallagher, the Pipe Hitter Foundation, had a huge fundraiser for us. So grateful to our friends and family for helping us out.
Unbelievably grateful, I'm sure, and you earned their respect and their generosity, I'm sure. I have no doubt of that. People don't give money where they don't feel it's deserved. But this is what kind of makes me sick about lawfare, is that they can ruin people in the process, even when you come out innocent of the charges.
Right, and they know that.
That needs some looking at in this country. Some tort reform, etc.
Yeah, that's why people take pleas. That's why people take a plea.
Yes.
I thought about it.
Otherwise, you get intimidated. It's going to cost you a fortune. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. This is why good people, honest people, are forced into bad situations. So you take those 6 weeks, Michael, and then you had to go in. What was federal prison like? What was your environment like?
The environment was awful. I walked in my first day and I couldn't believe I was there. It felt like a dream. Everybody was looking at me. They all know I'm a cop. I look like a cop. I walk like a cop. So they all started making comments. So I didn't feel safe at all my first several days. Day 2, it was a big shakedown of everybody's lockers and beds, and they found, I think, 9, 10, 11 knives, numerous cell phones and contraband and drugs. And of course they come to me and said I was the cause of the shakedown. You're a cop. Me. You're involved. You. I'm like, I just got here. I don't know what's going on here. I'm not going to give anybody up. I don't know what's going on. But they said I was a former law enforcement. You're a rat. We don't like cops. And I said, listen, sorry. I had nothing to do with this. I just got here. I'm sorry. And that was my second day there. So that continued for several days after. I didn't feel safe. I sent emails to the warden. I sent emails to my counselor. I don't feel safe. Can you please protect me, move me, whatever you have to do? Not one response. I didn't get any responses from my emails, from my reach out to several people at the prison.
But you ended up having a good counselor, and then he did find the right counselor who recognized that he shouldn't be there and wanted to help make sure he was transferred back to New Jersey. And we got to give him, he was just really wonderful. So you have to find the right person who recognizes what is to be done.
When you say counselor, are you saying a lawyer?
No, inside the prison, like your counselor, who's your assigned counselor.
Yeah, each inmate is assigned a counselor.
Each inmate gets a counselor. I didn't know that.
And we got a great one, and he was really helpful, and so we're grateful for that. But not everybody gets that. So, it was hard. It was hard to get in communications. I had to get in. Thank God for Mike Lawler, Congressman Sessions. Ralph Norman, Congressman Norman, got involved to say, wait a minute, this guy's a 9/11 first responder. He's, he shouldn't be 600 miles away from his family in a low security prison. He's a cop. He's in danger. They really went to the mat for us, and not everybody has that either. So we want to be able to use this now moving forward to maybe help bring more awareness to anybody who needs help. This can't be for nothing. It can't be for nothing.
I love that you just said that. It can't be for nothing.
Yeah, she was amazing. Absolutely. Day in, day out, fighting every single day for me. And now we want to help others to help them and help them with their cases and straighten out what's going on.
Well, if someone's listening who has some sort of tangential or direct connection with something, a similar case, what would be your first piece of advice for that person?
That's a great question. I wish we could ask that more often. First thing I would do is find your local representative, your local congressman, and get in touch with them immediately, because Michael Lawler is not our representative. He's across the border in New York, but he helped us because he saw a terrible wrong being done here. That doesn't happen very often. You've got to get your local congressman involved.
Well, did you get to your representative?
He never answered my calls. Cory Booker, 3 times I went to his office, never would meet with me. Josh Gottheimer, our local representative, would not meet with me. But see, you have to keep trying. If it's not your local person, you have to find somebody who's an advocate for you in Congress who can start making some waves and listening.
That is amazing to me that your reps in New Jersey would not respond.
Nothing. I went to Cory Booker's office. I left a note at and he was there because Mike said his SUVs were outside. They said, oh, he's not here today. And I just left a note saying I'd like a few minutes, and this is the case, and this and that. Very short little summary of the case. And listen, I've been on television. Again, I'm not doing that anymore, but for God's sakes, I mean, I have I have some, a voice. You would think he would want to at least take a courtesy meeting with me and then dismiss me if he wants, which happens many times. But absolutely nothing. I thought, you don't want to know about Chinese fugitives running around the state of New Jersey, buying properties, setting up police stations, and destroying the state right under your nose. You don't want to talk to us about that? No, you're not interested? Okay, I'll go with somebody else, So they're family.
And how did you get Mike Lawler's attention? How did you decide on him?
There was a fundraiser for me. My brother Vinny, who was the first responder, 9/11 first responder, fireman, he went to his office and said, can you please help my family? Can you please help my brother? There's a fundraiser tomorrow night for him. Can you please show up? And at the time, Mike was not a congressman. He was running for Congress. So Mike said, yeah, sure, I'll go. So Mike showed up and he said to me, I believe in your cause. If I become a congressman after I win this election, I will help you. And 2 days later, he calls us, meets with us for coffee.
After he won, yep.
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, you stuck to your word and you came through, and I'm so happy that you're here and you're still willing to help us.
I know.
And he's been a godsend for us. He's been a savior for us. He's been such a great person.
And just so you know, Vincent, his brother who passed away from 9/11 related cancer, the day before he was sentenced, we buried him, and Mike Lawler honored his brother on the House floor with a huge poster for a minute, recognizing his brother on the House floor. That's Michael Lawler. We need 1,000 Michael Lawlers in this country who are not afraid to speak up, and it's not about politics, it's about doing the right thing, even when it's challenging.
I've had Mike Lawler on this show. I found him to be authentic, decent, civil, strong, bold, and I am so glad to hear that he was in your corner. And what a beautiful thing to do for Vinny.
Yes.
I'll call him
Yes.
Vinny, Vincent. I'm so sorry for that. That was a bad stretch for you there, Michael. That was a tough couple of days.
Sure was.
It was tough
To go from the funeral, which was 1,000 firemen and fire trucks, and to have to go the next day, you're going to have to go in front of this judge who is I'm sorry, she is a vile person. And she said, basically, your children will be fine if your husband goes to prison. Because they're adults, they're fine. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, this woman has no soul. I'm sorry. She has no soul. What she allowed.
You don't need to apologize.
I mean, what she did in that courtroom, we couldn't put our evidence in. We couldn't talk about his NYPD history. We weren't allowed to talk about his career to the jury, so they would know he would never do something like this.
Yeah.
She really needs to be. I'm sorry. It's investigated. What this whole case is a mess.
Yeah.
And I don't know if William Barr. I don't know. What was going on in the Eastern District of New York in this case. I mean. It's just a mess. But
she worked hand in hand with the prosecution.
That's right.
She denied every single motion.
Everything. Every piece of evidence we wanted to put in denied every day. It was torture. It was absolute torture.
I remember talking to Martha before and just feeling the palpable. I can't even imagine. And now, Michael, getting to meet you, it brings it home even more. You're like you said, people need to know.
Yes.
You were a decorated cop. You were there on 9/11. You have done so much, and to have this done to you it's sickening. And I'm sure you're not the only one, but you like you said, this needs to be not for nothing. And so I hope and pray that you continue to get a ton of attention. Do you still have fundraisers up if people want to go support you and know that you might still be needing that support? Where can they go?
Well, definitely the pipehitterfoundation.org. Michael McMahon we have his own page. They've been phenomenal and stood by us the whole time. You can purchase my book, that In the Interest of Justice. The whole case is in there, and that's where we have to raise funds to pay back our lawyers who have been amazing, which are Gibbons Law Firm. They were so understanding. And my lawyer said, I promise you, you will never have to sell your home. This happened early on. He goes, I promise you, we'll figure it out. And to me, that was a godsend because I didn't want to uproot my family. I didn't want to have to sell my home, and so God bless them.
They believed in you.
They sure did. He sure did. So we definitely, people, because we want to, again, pay that forward with the Pipe Hitter Foundation. There's stories on there of other cops, first responders who are falsely accused. Military, just incredible organization. So we'll be working further with them. But we want to be able to help other people. Like you said, these bills, to be able to defend yourself shouldn't cost you everything.
No.
There needs to be some sort of change. But at least if there's some resources if you are, it gives a little bit of a little breathing room for survival, for lack of a better word.
So let's just revisit before I let you go, because we need to all feel the warmth that you both must be feeling right now. Who found out first about the pardon, Michael or Martha?
I think it was a joint
Lawler
effort.
called. Michael Lawler called me, and he called a lot, which was great. So I never had I called. He always called to check in, and he called. And you had just gone back to the halfway house in Newark. He had been working that day, and my phone rang. It says Michael Lawler, and my mother was in the kitchen with me. My mom lives with us, and I picked up the phone and I said, "Hi, Mike." He goes, "How are you?" I said, "Good. How are you?" He goes, "Is Mike standing next to you?" I knew what that meant. I said, "No." He goes, "Can you patch him in?" I said, "Okay." So I'm on my phone. I try to patch in Mike. The phone rings. He doesn't answer. I try again.
Mike.
He doesn't answer. So I hung out. I told Mike Lawler. I said, he goes, "Well, just call me back when you get him on the phone." I didn't ask.
I couldn't answer because I'm checking back into the halfway house in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So it's like going through a TSA at the airport. You have to go through
Yeah.
metal detectors, check your pockets, take off your shoes. So I'm going through this process, and you have to do a breathalyzer, a urine test, just to check back in. So I'm doing this whole process, which takes about 15 minutes. And she keeps calling my phone. I'm like, why she keeps calling? What? Not thinking it could be something important. So I finally answer it.
And
then
I patched him in.
But she didn't say what was going on. So I hear this strange male voice, "Michael?" I'm like, "Hello, who is this?" And he said, "Mike Lawler." I'm like, "Oh my God, how are you?" And he said, I just spoke to the president. He's giving you an unconditional pardon. And I was like, no way. I couldn't believe it. I was ecstatic.
What did it viscerally feel like? Like what happened in your body?
My heart started racing. I thought it was a dream, and I think I said that several times to Mike. Are you sure, Mike? This is not a dream? This is not something that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and not realize? But no, he's like, Mike, it's true. I just spoke to him.
And Martha, what was your reaction? I mean, were you kind of thinking this was what the call was about?
I knew I had a feeling, and then my mom just broke down in tears. My mom was in the kitchen, just broke down.
Yeah.
We just all broke down, and I didn't know where my kids were. I was like, I'm walking around in my pajamas. I'm like, where is everybody? And I got to tell my children who just...
How old are your kids?
27, 23, and 19. So
yeah, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I have a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
That's not... No judge would tell a mom
I know
that their kid will be fine with their dad in federal...
Exactly.
Good God.
Exactly. I was just... Like, are you kidding? Like, she's not a mother, and I'm not judging her for not being one. But if you have any,
She doesn't have a clue.
you don't have that connection. Is like, I've been keeping our family together for 5 years under one roof. We stayed together. To separate him from his family, it's just horrifying. I mean, it's brutal. So to have...
So how did the kids react?
Just joy. Overwhelming joy, because they've heard me for months and years saying, we're going to get this through. I think we're going to get a pardon. I really believe we're going to get a pardon. We've had so much support from so many people here in DC that were just advocates for Mike, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, on camera, who just... Pete Sessions and Ralph Norman too, they went to bat for Mike. So I knew we had the right people in place to put this over the line. But as everybody's told me, President Trump only does it when he wants to do it. He does it. It's his final decision. And when he heard the case, he decided to do it. And again, bless Michael Lawler for pushing, because he was right at the front lines and not afraid to push. So it's just, my children had seen me fighting for so many years, and you look to the parents for hope. You want to believe that they wanted to believe me, but it kept going on and on and on and on. And I just hope that my son became a police officer, my oldest son. I mean, even through all this, right?
Oh my
that
goodness.
Just tells me.
I just got chills. I just got goosebumps.
Right?
That is, you must be so proud.
Yes.
So
Very
proud. So proud. So he saw the bad guys, right? The bad cops. He said, I want to be like my father, the good cop.
He left a teaching position to become a cop.
Yes.
Here in New Jersey, and very proud of him for making that decision, and he did it in my honor. So
it's amazing. And my
Makes me-
other two
makes
are
me
doing
proud.
great too. They really survived this, and it could have gone very
Well,
different.
you know why they're doing great? Because they got good
Thank
parents.
you. Thank you.
And I can look at you both and say that without hesitation.
Thank you.
You present yourselves and your family's struggle so well. I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I am so pissed that you had to go
Thank
through
you.
this. But I remember talking to Martha several months ago and thinking, he's going to get pardoned. I just know he's going to get pardoned.
you.
And so when I got the email that told me that you had, I was so excited, and I'm so thrilled to meet you face to face in this sort of virtual way, Michael. I'm
Thank
just, your wife has my admiration, and you both have my respect, and we are happy to tell your story. And we will direct people to pipe fitters and anywhere else that, I'm so grateful that Mike Lawler was there for you as well. And I can't imagine how you must all feel to be back under the same roof together.
Feels good.
It feels good. Still in shock.
Yeah. Really? Still in a little bit of
We're
shock?
going-
Are either of you afraid?
No.
No.
Not at all.
No.
No. You can't go through this and be afraid. when they try to destroy you from the inside out, and they've done everything they can to break you, and you survive this. Absolutely not. We're very faithful. We're Catholics. We really believe that you get chosen for these challenges, and God doesn't give you challenges they don't think that you can handle. And I don't know what God chose us to do this, and every day I would wake up and go, just put me in the right direction, God. Just put me in the right direction. Just show me the path. I'll do it. I'm not afraid. And you have to have total blind faith in your faith to say, okay, these hits that are coming, these assaults that are coming, these abuse that is coming, it's like the demons. It's really the darkest forces of humanity coming at you, and that's your test of your faith. So we really thank God for everything, because it's a true testimony to giving the opportunity. It's such a weird word, but an opportunity to do good and pay it forward for the next group of people who may need that faith. Maybe they just need to have some belief in their faith again, that if you hold on and you fight hard, material things mean nothing. They mean nothing. It's all about your heart and your soul and doing for others, and that's what people remember, right? About what you've done for others on the planet, the footprints you leave behind, and hopefully we've paved the path for others to make it a little easier for the next group. Maybe the next prosecutor won't decide to lie to the jury and make up evidence for the next person just to create a case. Maybe they'll think twice to go after an innocent person in the future. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but maybe.
We can hope, right? We can hope. You two, I end every podcast saying, be brave and do good.
Oh,
Love that.
And you have done that in spades.
thank you.
And I'm so happy to know you both and know that you will be spending Christmas as a family together.
Thank you. Us
Oh,
too.
look, you're just adorable.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Enjoy. God bless.
You can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.